Hi Ikri, Namalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. And today we're going to talk about my best books of 2025. Best and surprising, I think, is how I'm going to do it. Pretty self-explanatory. The first set of books I'm going to go through are books that surprised me, that I surprisingly liked and enjoyed. Not to say that like I go into a book going, oh, I'm not going to like this. Like I hope that I'm going to like it, right? But like it kind of exceeded expectations somehow, some way. And then we'll get into my favorite nonfiction reads of this year, as well as my favorite fictions, because I do read both. So the first one is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. This is a dark romance and that features some stalking and so this was actually, so I joined The Lair, which is Jan Agaton's Discord / Patreon. I think this was like the full moon book club read for January, something of the sort, but it's the first time I was like, you know what, let's do it. Okay, let's go into it. And I had so much fun just listening to this book. I rated it at 3.5, but I immediately like bought the physical copy, and I just had fun not only just listening to it, but like commenting in the Discord with other people about it. Like I just had a good time. And I don't think I would have really picked this book up otherwise. So like this one kind of helped me dive into more dark romances. This one was just kind of ridiculous. I love the narrators. I will agree with other folks in The Lair though that like the main female character like had no real personality. We didn't really get to know her other than that she was a nurse and she has interesting family ties. I am curious about the second book in this series, but the main love interest, hilarious. It's the voice actor who does a lot of the male love interest voices for Abby Jimenez's books. I forget his name, but he uses a different name for dark romances, and it's because it took me a little bit going, is that the same guy? Does he have a twin? Because he sounds exactly, and it's the same guy. And there were just moments where I was listening to this book at work and like snort laughed and had to like leave the office because I work in a shared office space with like 5 other people. And I remember commenting on the Discord going, I just snort laughed, I have to leave, oh my god, and like just freaking out. And it was freaking, it just made it that much more funnier, that much more enjoyable. So it's like the story itself was a little, there were some good moments. The main character was a little much in terms of lacked in terms of personality, but was a little much in terms of like commenting that her ovaries were like, put a baby in me. Like it was a bit, that aspect was a bit odd, but otherwise I thought this book was kind of funny. And I do have a physical copy that I'm too lazy to go grab, and I am curious about the sequel that did come out in the summer, but we'll see. I'm not sure where that's gonna go, and it's following like I think her cousin, so I'm really just, I don't know. I'm also just nervous that like, you know, it's not going to hit as well because it's not like the Full Moon Book Club is reading it necessarily. So I don't know. We'll see. Another surprise was Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker. I have not read a Kylie Lee Baker before. I did have another one of her books, the one with the Grim Reaper. I actually had to toss that book out though. It was a book of the month pick. I had to like toss out most of my book of the month. Not anything book of the month did. I unsubscribed from them a couple of years ago just because I just got tired of it. But the books that I had retained from that subscription that I still wanted to read ended up getting moldy. So I unfortunately had to toss that one. I think that was called Keeper of Night. So Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang, I kind of just went into kind of knowing what it was about, but kind of not. It was fairly hard-hitting. It is, the main storyline does revolve around COVID, so bear that in mind, but I think it had some really intense commentary, and I think it was a really interesting horror and a look on missing and murdered women. Like I know that MMIW is typically seen as an indigenous outlook, but I think it could really be applied for any women of color, particularly because a lot of people aren't looking for women of color, they're looking for white women. So I thought that was a really intense commentary and something that I reflected on while reading it. I did get a alternate edition of this book. Originally, it was the Illumicrate horror edition, and I just really didn't like that edition, and I have actually unsubscribed from that as well, just because I wasn't enjoying their alternate covers nearly as much as the originals. I don't have the original cover for this book, but I do want it, so that is like on a shopping list in my brain. But yeah, I gave this book 4 stars and like highly recommend, but definitely go in after looking up content warnings. Another surprise was a recent read, actually, and that's Better Than Fiction by Alexis Martin. This is a contemporary romance. I was not having the best of luck with contemporary romances this year. Not that I read too many others outside of dark romance, but even the dark romances were just kind of meh, like mid-road. But Better Than Fiction I really enjoyed, and I'm just overall curious if it's just because like it's not from a white perspective. So Alexis Martin is a Black author. Our main character is a Black woman who ends up inheriting a bookstore from her grandmother, but she doesn't like reading. So when the love interest gets introduced to her, he's a famous romance author. So it was just kind of funny. It was kind of reflective. There were some bits that I had some critique on, but otherwise I thought it was a really well-crafted book. And what I appreciated about it was that our main character wasn't afraid to say what was needed. She wasn't meek by any means. She has some problems with her father, and she was not afraid to call him out in public. And even though she was like, yeah, embarrassed that it happened in public, she did not feel sorry for him. She was not having it. And I really, really appreciated that. And yes, I feel like the third act breakup was a little dramatic and a little bit of a stretch, because it did have to do with miscommunication, which is a trope that I don't tend to enjoy. But it was a miscommunication in terms of like opting not to say something and thinking of it as a lie. So bear that in mind. But otherwise, I rated this a high 3, not quite a 4. I do kind of want a physical copy of this because I think it would be a fun reread. However, this cover, as much as I kind of enjoy it, I don't think it fits the story at all. I don't feel like this vibe fits the vibe of the story. I like it, don't get me wrong, I just don't think it fits for the story at all. Mostly because like the female character in here does seem a little meek, and that's not the main character. Also, the love interest, like she mentioned him being like Caribbean, and so I kind of thought another Black character, and that's not who this is. So I don't know, I don't know who they got as the cover artist, but I feel like all they really did was read the quick synopsis and was like, oh, okay, this is like the generic viewpoint I have of these two like people in a bookstore. I don't feel like they actually read the book. So that's my qualm with that. And then finally, my last surprise of the year is Unlikely Animals by Annie Harnett. This is a literary fiction. I don't know what defines a literary fiction, but it was really interesting because I was interested in reading it, and I read it particularly to satisfy the U in the A to Z reading challenge for the year. So yes, but what surprised me more was that as I was starting to read it, I'm like, the narrators, so there's some magic realism in this book. The narrators for this story are the ghosts in the small town that the story is set in, and particularly the ghosts or souls that are stuck in the local graveyard. So it kind of gave me The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I know that he's a problematic author right now, and it's been a while since I've read the Graveyard book. But that's kind of what it reminded me of. We kept getting commentary throughout the whole book of like these ghosts going, I could have told him that, like just random little snippets. And it was really just kind of, it made the book fun. But this book we're following, what is her name? Emma. She was like thought to be like to do great things with her life because she was thought to be a healer of sorts, like have magic hands or healing hands or something like that. Not necessarily like she can break or she can mend someone's broken arm or something, but like she can help a wound heal a bit faster with her touch. So she was like thought to be going great and to have a great future or whatever. But then she ends up like she's like a straight A student. She's like valedictorian in her small town, but then she like moves out and moves to California because this is in New Hampshire, and realizes she's not all that special. What she always thought, that she was expected to be an ER doctor, and she feels like she can't do that. So what is her plan now? It is kind of it does go over some heavy topics, but I thought this was a really fun and quirky book, and I ultimately had it another one that I rated at a high 3, not quite a 4. I would reread this, but I would probably re-listen to it because I am not a fan of this cover. So, and I think it was a fun audiobook in all honesty. So let's see, let's go into my nonfictions. First and foremost, Bird Milk and Mosquito Bones by Priyanka Mattu. This is the first nonfiction that I finished and the second book I finished of 2025, and I still think about it. I absolutely love this book. I enjoy the cover. It's another yellow cover that like publishers say doesn't sell very well. I don't know how I stumbled across this. I think it was one of those like, oh, it's a release for January. Yeah, let's check it out. And I ended up really enjoying it. So we go into Priyanka Mattu. It's kind of like Priyanka Mattu's memoir of sorts. She was born in a place that is now being fought over between India and Pakistan, from my understanding. No, Iran. India and Iran. Something else. There's like conflict, and so her family's dream home is being built there, but they can't move in because of this conflict, and eventually the house ends up burning down. They live in India, but then her father gets a job in England, so then she goes to England. Well, then he gets another job in somewhere else, and so she's constantly traveling and never really considers what she never feels like anchored anywhere. Doesn't think of any place as home, and it always ends up feeling like after a couple of years she needs to get up and leave. But now having her own family and living in Los Angeles, she always kept these stories of her childhood, like from her current family, from her kids, and till one day, like for whatever reason, her son gets these fears, and I'm gonna. It's a quote that really stuck with me. Let me see if I can find it. Did I shove my anxiety so far down that it baked into a baby? And it's because her son starts getting these fears of knives and then suddenly fire. And one of their homes when growing up did burn down. So that's like, I don't know, it was just a very reflective and interesting nonfiction. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah, can't stop thinking about it. Next we have By the Fire We Carry by Rebecca Nagel. So this was an interesting one. It gave me Killers of the Flower Moon, but by an Indigenous author. I think that's my one thing with Killers of the Flower Moon, is that I, like, as much as I enjoyed it and it's read kind of like a thriller, it is real people. It is things that have happened, and it's written by a non-Indigenous author. By the Fire We Carry doesn't go over the Osage murders at all, but it does go into the history of the Trail of Tears. Our history being taught in education is terrible. And so I think Rebecca Nagel does a really good job in terms of connecting things first off. So we kind of go into a Supreme Court decision that's really going to determine what legal rights tribes have on their reservations. And as we're following that, she goes into the lead up to the Trail of Tears, because her family was part of that in terms of negotiating with the government and trying to make sure that they can stay, and they end up getting moved. And so it kind of like leads into that. And all we really know, like all I was told in terms of that history was like, nope, they were forced in the Trail of Tears and many people died, and this is where they are now. There wasn't any precursor. Like I said, Nagel does a great job in terms of going into the precursors and like what led up to that. And that, yes, those tribes fought for it and they tried to fight legally about it. And yeah. So it was a really good book. I ended up listening to this and then I immediately got a physical copy. Highly suggest. Yeah, it was really good. I liked it. It was very in-depth. It taught me a lot. It had me reflect a lot. Next we have Food for Thought, Essays and Ruminations by Alton Brown. Alton Brown is was a Food Network host. I haven't seen him on there very much lately, and he kind of goes into that a little bit in this book. I enjoyed Good Eats. I enjoyed Cutthroat Kitchen when he was the host for that. I liked his appearances in some of the other ones, but he kind of like lets you know in this book of his that, you know, people don't really think of him as a cook because he like doesn't run a kitchen, or he doesn't have like, he doesn't create dishes necessarily. He tinkers, and that's kind of what I've enjoyed about, I just kind of like learning more about Alton. I occasionally go into celebrity memoirs occasionally, and this one was just kind of fun just because like I've enjoyed Alton's just kind of like no bullshit attitude on food, and I respect his opinion on cooking. And like one of the questions he was asked was like, what's the best kitchen gadget, or like what is the most important thing to have in your kitchen? And he said a table. A table is the best thing to have in your kitchen, because the kitchen is the heart of the house, and to have a table for gathering, for eating, it just makes sense. And it's like I don't think that's what the person was wondering, but like I liked exploring that. And he kind of goes into like how he met his wife, and how like during COVID like they started doing these little shorts to show people how to cook, and how he had to learn that she wanted to be in the kitchen too, and he had to kind of like back up. So it was just really nice to get to know him as a person a little bit. I'm glad that he's doing like YouTube videos now. Yeah, I don't know, I just respect him. And he also had like this moment with an octopus that I thought was really sweet too, and had me tear up at work. So also another one that like as soon as I listen to it, which I do suggest the audiobook because Alton Brown does narrate it, I did get the physical copy. Next we have Forest Euphoria by Patricia Onaniu. I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher this. Patricia Onaniu Cashian. This is a kind of like nature nonfiction of sorts. This was just kind of a nice listen. But I do have to go back and kind of think about what it was about. It's been a minute since. So this is a nature nonfiction, and it basically follows Patricia as they go like reminisce about growing up in swamps and culverts near their house, and was constantly just outside among amphibious beings, snakes and snails and the fungi. And I don't know, it was just like a lovely, like, it was just kind of like a fun kind of venture into their world as they see it, because it is like the unbounding queerness of nature. So it's just like, see, it even says nature, Cashian shows us, is filled with the unusual, the overlooked, and the marginalized, and they have lessons for us all. So it was just a nature observation type deal, but also like a life in Patricia's life as they navigate like their own sexuality, and as well as their own education. So I thought it was really fun. Yeah, I only had 4 nonfictions for you. So next we'll go into my top favorite fiction books of the year. The first being The Gathering by C.J. Tudor. This was so much fun. So this was like another it was not a book club pick for the layer at all, but like a bunch of people started reading it about the same time. This originally got brought to my attention, like I saw it around, but I wasn't sure about it. But then Alexis from Alexis Fully Booked, who I'll have linked down below, had started reading it and enjoyed it and kind of said what it was about. And I'm like, ooh, I need to read this. And basically it's a murder mystery. We're following this woman who is like a detective, and she's been called to Alaska because there's been a murder. But not just any murder. It's claimed that they were murdered by a vampire. Vampires are real in this world, and there's like history in the midst of that, and it's really cool, and that's what I really enjoy about it. So the small town that she's going to is calling for a cull, which essentially means that so long as they can prove that yes, this is in fact a murder and it was a murder from a vampire, then they get to kill that vampire clan. I'm not sure how I don't quite remember how they like define that. It was really dark and just really fun and really interesting. Did get intense a little bit there, and I was ultimately like, I wanted more exploration of like the history, particularly when it came to like, because there was a little bit, but I wanted more in terms of like the exploration of the history when it comes to vampires and indigenous people. We did have some indigenous side characters, but I was a little disappointed. Yeah, it was like a great diverse group of people. Our main character is a lesbian, and from what I understand, on the bigger side, and I think the old sheriff was black. I think it's been a while, and so I read this back in February, so my apologies for not quite remembering the details, but I particularly remember really enjoying it. And it's like, it gave me that same feeling as When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. Just that like, let's change something in history, and this is how history has changed because of this thing, and this is where we are now. I love that. I want more of that. If you have any suggestions for that, please let me know. I want more. I also, what I want is like other authors to kind of expand on this universe. It kind of was hinted that The Gathering would have a sequel. I don't know. The ending made it feel like there was going to be a sequel of some kind, so I'm really curious. I need to look back into that. I haven't looked at it in a while. Next we have Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. So I will warn you, the next couple, like a couple of books are going to be from this series. This was another book club pick for the layer, and I absolutely loved it. This was amazing. I was kind of nervous about it because I thought it was just going to be a fantasy romance, and it was so much more than that. It was dark. And I also have had issue with some of T. Kingfisher's fairy tale retellings, so I was a little hesitant with this, but it was so much fun. So Paladin's Grace is on here. I rated that 4.5 stars, but the next one, Paladin's Strength, I absolutely love. That was a 5-star. This is so much fun. So we have these paladins whose god dies inexplicably, like don't know where that came from, and so they end up going berserk. Some of them end up dying. Their monks, some of their monks end up dying. Like, it's a whole thing. And we have a small select few who end up getting like adopted by the rat god, or the faction of a rat. And basically all these paladins feel like they are beyond being loved because they have this empty hole in their heart that their god used to be in. And so each book we're following a paladin as they find love, and I like that's just a part of it. There's a whole underlying like plot for the first 2 books, and it's dark and creepy. There's this like thing that is like biting off people's heads, and it's really freaking creepy, and I really enjoy it. And the first one really like hooked me, and Paladin's Grace was really fun because we have this paladin, I think his name's Steven, running into this woman at night, and she's like trying to get away from these guys from another like god faction, and they're bad people. And so they pretend to like be having sex in an alleyway, and it's like the most awful really awkward encounter, but it was really fucking funny. And that's one thing about these books, is that not just dark in that creepy sense, but they are lighthearted in some senses, and there is this like swooning bit, and it had all the things that I absolutely loved. And so I love Paladin's Grace. That's all I'll say about that, because there are a couple others on this list too that are part of that same series. Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh my god. Okay, so I haven't read a Taylor Jenkins Reid since Daisy Jones and the Six, and I did enjoy Daisy Jones and the Six, but everything else so far had been like not of interest to me. But then Atmosphere came out and I'm like, I'm actually kind of curious. So I started listening to it and it was intense, and I was kind of fearful that something bad was going to happen. Not to say that nothing bad didn't happen, but I thought it was going to be way worse. Like, I had anxiety throughout for these characters, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But it, like, things still happened. And then the ending. Oh my god. So the ending was just crazy. I was listening to this, and from my understanding with Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, there's a particular author that reads them every time. I think it's Julia Wayland. Let me just confirm. Yeah, Julia Wayland narrate. But also so does Kristen I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with this one. Kristen DiMercurio. My tongue doesn't like that. But okay, so Atmosphere. The cover is gorgeous. The narration was fantastic. Julia Wayland does great. And so does Kristen. I'm not gonna bother with that last name, I'm sorry. I swear I like went on lunch at work and like knew I was gonna be by myself, and I was like, yes, perfect, because I was sobbing. Like, I was crying, and I was just like paying attention to the clock because I only had an hour, and it was just like, even after I was done, I just had to sit there for a bit and just like let the tears fall. And then I had to clean myself up and go back downstairs to go back to work. And I immediately like went to a student assistant that also was like constantly asking me what I'm reading and what I should recommend, because she's constantly reading. And I was like, you need to read this. You need to read this right now. I need to talk to someone. I thought it was fantastic. So I am going to go and pick and choose some of Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist books to see what else is out there. If you have any suggestions, let me know to a degree. I'm trying to think. There's a couple of them, like Carrie Soto, don't give a shit. Malibu Rising, also don't give a shit. But like Atmosphere, really enjoyed. Daisy Jones and the Six, really enjoyed. So I don't know, maybe it's just something I have to like go pick and choose and see like which ones I think I'm gonna enjoy. But yeah, fantastic. Rated that five stars. Okay, next, Paladin's Strength. Oh my god. Okay, if I loved Paladin's Grace, Paladin's Strength just made it so much more enjoyable. So again, following another paladin, and then his love interest is like a sister of Ursa. I don't want to give it away, but it's amazing. I absolutely love it. You need to read this book series. Because the next one is Paladin's Hope, which I also really enjoyed. It's not a 5-star. I gave Paladin's Strength 5 stars. Paladin's Hope, I gave 4.5 stars. Wasn't quite as good. I actually would almost rate it 4 stars because I like Paladin's Grace better than Paladin's Hope. But Paladin's Hope had a good pine in terms of there was some good swoony moments. It was really cute. I just didn't like their travel adventures so much. It was creepy. Again, the creepiness goes through the whole thing. There's like a good horror to it. And the romance is just really sweet. I don't know. It was just like each one was like unexpected. And it wasn't like this cookie cutter like, oh, this is what happened in the first one. It's going to happen similarly in the second one. Absolutely not. Could not guess what was going on. Next, Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. I wasn't sure what to expect from this. So the cover attracted me because it's a bright cover. Noodles on the cover with a robot hand, absolutely love. It's about robots. I've been looking for more cozy robot reads, or sci-fi. If they happen to pertain to robots, great. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Not the Murderbot series. I am going to have to reread those at some point, but at the moment I'm kind of just like, eh. And I've read Becky Chambers, and she does great. But Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. So I've been stuck on Autonomous by Annalee Newitz, and I'm liking it. I've just kind of fallen out of it. I do want to try to finish it in 2026. But Automatic Noodle is a novella, I feel like. Yeah, it's a novella. Yeah, it's a novella. We're following a group of robots who want to open up their own noodle shop. They are in California. It's kind of a dystopian because we kind of get this like history of just like, ooh, California is not a part of the actual US anymore. Robots have autonomy to a degree in California, but like they can earn money, but they can't have a bank account. They can't technically open their own business. So these robots are like trying to find loopholes to create their own business so that they can remain running, earn money, and like pay off their debts. It reminded me very much of like college students. But it's like, I love passion for just passion's sake. So like a robot particularly really wants to make a noodle shop because he really, really wants to make noodles. He can't eat them, but he likes the craft of making them. And then the robot that can actually taste them, like, yeah, they taste fine, but they're more interested in like making money. So it's this like weird dynamic. We get to learn about each of the robots. There is one human who kind of helps them along, but like the robots are the main focus. And we kind of get their backgrounds. We get each of their backgrounds, and there was like, I remember listening to it at one point, and it actually like with one of the robots' background, they were in the Bay Area, and Yurok Nation is mentioned, which if you don't know, I'm part of the Yurok tribe here in Northern California. Not sure why Yurok Nation was down in Bay Area, but like I'm not questioning it. I was just like, wait. Like I paused and was like, I need this page. That is the narrator like mispronouncing something? Do they actually mean like a Yurok Nation, like Yurok, the Yurok tribe? Like what is this? Immediately paused it. Thankfully it was my day off, and I immediately went over to the local bookstore. They had a copy of this book, and I immediately like opened it up to where I thought it was. I found it, and it was Yurok Nation, and so I bought the book. It was just really interesting. There's kind of climate fiction to it. There's also like trans sort of messaging through it, as one robot in particular is like really just embodying who they actually think they are, or who they believe to be. So there's that. And I remember there being an article about that, how like robots are often a representation of transition of trans themes. So that was really interesting. It was like fun recognizing that. But like I said, there is climate fiction. There is also like some weird government stuff. It's another one that like tickled that part of my brain, like The Gathering did, and When Women Were Dragons. But it was like going into a sci-fi element as opposed to a fantasy. So it was really just like, what's going on? I want to know more about this world. I want to know like how we got here, and like where is it going? So it was a really fun read. I ended up buying another copy of it to give to someone for, I think it was like a blind date with a book Christmas exchange through a book club I'm a part of here locally. So that was really fun, and it makes me more excited to read Autonomous. It's now like at the forefront of my brain of just like, get this done in 2026. The next two are going to be rereads, but I still like really enjoyed them. And the first one is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I ended up rereading this for a buddy read for a local book club that I'm a part of. We have a Discord. It's called the Beargrass Reading Collective. So it's a local indigenous reading group. So we are somewhat active. There's like 4 to 5 of us that are regularly active. But we ended up buddy reading A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was a reread for me. This was a first read for a lot of other people within the reading collective. And I enjoyed this the same as my first time around. I really like the world building. I like learning about the Skullomans. The first book in a series tends to be like the one that I really enjoy because of the world building. I understand that with this one in particular, it's a lot of info dumping, and that is not everyone's cup of tea. And this was actually my suggestion for a book buddy read for the month, and I was really nervous about it, but everyone seemed to really enjoy it, so I think we did okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one, just as much as I did the first time around. I was curious, and this really helped with other people reading it, because I remember when first reading it in 2020, and Naomi Novik got called out because she was helping portray the negative stereotype that dreadlocks are dirty. And the audiobook that I got from Libro still had that section in there, despite the fact that Naomi Novik said that she was working with the publisher to get it removed. The physical copy that I have still, I mean, it's the first edition, so it still has that, but I'm surprised that the audiobook still has it. The others in the collective that also read this book read like physical copies that weren't first editions, as well as Kindles, like ebooks. So, and they said that it was not a part of there. So it was good to see that. It's just weird to me that it's still through the audiobook. Like, I would think that would be easier to like crop out, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, still really enjoyed it. Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. So with both of these, once I finish the series, I do hope to have reviews. But Dread Nation, still very much enjoyed it like I did the first time. Yes, there is a lack of representation in terms of Indigenous representation, despite the book being inspired by boarding schools. Basically, have I been telling you what all these are about? But yeah, this is like a historical dystopian. Zombies end up interrupting the Civil War, and the government ends up creating the Negro and Indigenous like combat school, or combat school for Indigenous and Negro children. Basically, like, Black and Indigenous children are like swept away into these boarding schools to learn how to fight zombies, so that white people don't have to fight zombies and pretty much not get killed. Still very much enjoyed it. I think it's because it's the introduction to the world of how it happened, of the historical fiction element of it, of how history was altered because of this. Yes, I do agree there is a lack of Indigenous representation. There is like one Indigenous person, and he's not the greatest guy. So that was kind of a meh, but otherwise I still really enjoyed the book. And yeah, that was also like my very last book of the year, which is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Like, this is not my first rodeo with this book. I absolutely love this book. There is some fat shaming in this book. They particularly really make fun of Bomber, which is a heavyset dwarf, and they're constantly poking fun, saying that if he pulled his own weight, if he just lost weight, or like whatever. But I haven't finished this book yet, but I can pretty much assure you that by the end of the year I will have read it yet again. So yeah, those are my best books and most surprising books of 2025. If you have any commonalities, please let me know. Otherwise, any of the recommendations that I've asked for, please let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that your winter is relaxing, and I hope that you are enjoying it. And I hope that you are enjoying whatever read that you're being called to right now. What is my normal sign out? I hope that you are enjoying your current read, I guess. Okay, whatever. Chew!